list. We're still hoping that Ruth Ambogo, also a lawyer, will be joining us later on. Let's just hope she will make it. A quick look at the headlines. Raila defiant amid treason warning. That's a big one on the Standard. Same story headlining on the Daily Nation. AG clashes with Raila on oath plot. NASA tells off America over calls to drop ceremony as Attorney General warns action is illegal and will attract treason charge. That's a big story. On the back page of the Daily Nation, millions lost in police shoes scam, audit shows. The Auditor General has unearthed irregularities in the procurement of shoes for the police, with purchases beyond the approved amount and falsification of documents. Let's start there. Mark. Surely.
We stole boots from the police.
And if you see some of the, if you read the paragraph on the front page of the Daily Nation, it says that in the process of this procurement, where documents were falsified and all other things happened, about 175 million might have been lost, while some officers were forced to buy shoes for themselves. Yes? Just so that someone could pocket a few million shillings.
The biggest problem with this country, and I keep saying, is we have a moral problem. And I keep saying, beyond building roads, beyond building bridges, beyond the last mile electrification, the only thing we're electrifying is our bad manners. And this is the problem of our country, that we have serious bad manners without regard to basic human decency. Because can you imagine that policeman having to run after a thief with shoes with holes, or with shoes that he had to buy off of Mtumba rack because someone decided to pocket 175 million shillings from police boots? And these are the things that we need to address. And whereas I agree the president does not have persecutorial powers or imperial powers like Moi used to have, but he can name them and shame them. Yes. And I think that's what he needs to do. Yes. He needs to take the moral stand where he says, you know what, Freddie Dimuli was supposed to procure microphones for Citizen. He failed, and I am very embarrassed at him. I expect him. I think we need to get to that point, yes, where we are able to shame.
And you should clarify that that was just an example. I do not take part in any procurement processes at Citizen. Dunstan, this is embarrassing.
Yeah, one thing about also corruption has become a cancer in this country, in the sense that even if the institution that we expect probably to be enforcers of the law, if corruption has permeated that level, then we need to ask ourselves, what is our malady as a nation? Is it about our moral fiber so weak? Is it about our culture? Is it that we have legalized and socialized corruption in the sense that it is normal? Is it that we are now at the stage where we have given up in terms of the fight against corruption? Is it that our institutions, more so the EACC and other organs that within the state functionaries that are not able to do their job? So I think as a nation we should ask ourselves, we should have these I can't call it a dialogue, but a sense of monologue among us all state actors, among us all individual public officers within the state sphere, that they should ask themselves, what is it that is ailing us? For example, at the police, the IG, for example, at this moment in time should have suspended some of the individuals, the procurement officers, or the individuals who have been named to be part and parcel of the whole process. We should not actually wait for the Auditor General's report. On the other hand, we should also give a benefit of doubt to the legal procedures that are set out forth, so that if anybody is accused of maybe any kind of malpractice or also corruption, then he should pave way for investigation.
But let's be realistic. We know this is just a headline and nothing will happen about this.
In fact,
no one will be prosecuted. No one will be even presented before court. This is just another headline that will be forgotten after today.
Absolutely. And the problem is this. Let me explain to you the Kenyan problem. The Kenyan problem is this, is that the person who stole this money, if they were mentioned in the paper, they would go to church and the priest will accept the tithes, okay? They'll go to the wife and the wife will accept the new car. They'll go to the klande and the klande will accept being paid for an apartment in Kilelesho. This is the problem, that there is no societal backlash to being a bad person in this country. You understand? Everyone in a village will point out and say, that person, you see that house, they stole it. But there's no, we don't even gossip about them. We praise them.
Yes.
And that's a problem. When you idealize what is wrong, then the society cannot change. This is not even about our criminal justice system. It is about we as a people, what do we consider to be a moral threshold, of a leader or anyone we look up to.
Yes.
If you look at the youth today and the people they look up to, you have two choices. Either you have a corrupt politician or a socialite. That's all they have to look up to. Because the rest of us who try to eke out a living, we are not glorified.
Yes.
You understand?
Because the headline should be embarrassing, but clearly we are not embarrassed as a country, Dunstan. We think this, in fact, we should be looking at exactly who was this so that we see the kind of lifestyle they are leading now.
Exactly. One thing that, one thing that with corruption in this country is that we romanticize corruption, and any person who appears to be corrupt and is doing well is glorified for that matter. Therefore, within the moral fabrics of our nation, amongst our people, then corruption in a sense has been legalized, in the sense that I think probably at this moment in time we should be asking who are these specific individuals and what actions has the institution, not the EACC, not the director of CID, but the institutions where they are serving within the internal mechanisms of punishing corruption or looking out at the issues that really relate to malpractices or malfeasance within the institutions. What have they done? But I think the buck stops with the IG for this matter. If it's within the police, then the IG should also tell us within the internal mechanisms, what have they done to ensure that those who have been accused or those who have been suspected or those who have been, the allegations have been leveled against them, what have they been what are the procedures that have been put in place? But more importantly, I think personally I look at our education system in the sense that our education system does not really put so much value on the soft skills, on what is not, we go to school, and one thing you go to school, after going to school is you think about wealth acquisition, not about public service, not about what is this thing, what is this culture that's being taught, or the curriculum that is being taught at Kiganjo. Is it about service to the community? Is it about service to the nation? Or is it about an avenue or a channel to be used for wealth acquisition? What I think probably is being churned out from the Kiganjo is a thought or a mindset that when you join the police service, then it's not about service to the community or service to the nation, but rather an avenue to generate income. But more importantly, if you look at what are the reforms, with these the reforms that have been alluded to or that have been said to times no numbers about national service, are the reforms realistic? And what are these problems, the teething problems that you see, even our ranking across the world in terms of police service has been so low? What are these teething problems within the service that probably the National Police Service Commission should really address, more so in terms of training and in terms of remuneration? Because probably we're also blaming so much on the part of the police, but their training is bad, their remuneration is bad, and their terms of service are bad. So
this goes even up to the procurement,
to the procurement level, in the sense that sometimes you see in such an institution, how do you recruit even a procurement officer? Is it about, for example, is it about on the basis of academic qualification, or you'll go to Kiganjo and pick somebody who has a different background in a particular field, then try to inculcate into him some clerical duties so that is able to serve in that department?
It gets worse. Yes, we are now stealing shoes from our police officers, and we feel nothing about it. If anything, this is one of those headlines that will go. And it's been highlighted on the front page. It makes big news on the back page of the Daily Nation. I doubt it will be any. It will make any talking point come next week. People will have moved on from that. So let's talk about some things that probably we'll continue talking about next week. And that's a big one. And that's a big one. If my director could help me with this story also, where the AG, it's a big story, the AG, Githu Muigai, talks about any attempt to swear in Raila Odinga as president come next week as high treason. Let's have that story now.
In 5 days' time, Raila Odinga hopes to be sworn as the president, the hallmark of NASA's disaffection with the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta. Government's chief legal advisor now dismissing NASA's desire as an illegal adventure whose execution would attract serious charges against its conveners.
The criminal law of the Republic of Kenya in Article 40 of the Penal Code provides or stipulates that that sort of process is high treason. What is the punishment for high treason? It is death.
Muigai is saying the only route to the presidency is an election where the winning candidate is declared president-elect by IEBC and subsequently sworn in at a ceremony presided by the Chief Justice, a process that has already taken place. The National Super Alliance has been pushing for the establishment of people's assemblies through passage of motions at county assemblies that it controls, and also declare non-recognition of Kenyatta's presidency. Professor Muigai now warning county officials of their consequences should they go ahead to facilitate and finance establishment of such assemblies.
Any person involved in the use of money legitimately voted by the National Assembly to do legitimate work in the counties and is now being used for this illegitimate purpose means that these monies can be surcharged to those persons who have been involved in that process.
Already 12 counties have endorsed the motion, including Mombasa, Machakos, Kwale, Kilifi, Busia, Siaya, Kakamega, Vihiga, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori and Makueni. The government is also threatening serious financial action against county governments that rechannel resources meant for devolved functions into the parallel assemblies.
That the government retains the right to review county expenditure where the counties have misappropriated, and this, there can be no other word to describe it, is a misappropriation of legitimate monies that should be serving the wananchis. These monies can be surcharged to those persons who have been involved in that process.
The Attorney General's pronouncement clearly spells out the legal opinion of the government on NASA thinking as to whether that will act as a deterrent on the opposition and its planned activities for next Tuesday is clearly a ball in NASA's court. Sam Gituku, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Yeah, for a moment there I was caught on live TV trying to take screenshots of all the stories here, just communicating with some of our audiences. Raila Odinga defiant amid treason warning. That's the headline on the Standard. AG clashes with Raila on oath plot. That's a big one on the front page of the Daily Nation. Joining the panel now, Ruth Ambogo, also a lawyer. Karibu sana. At least now the panel is balanced. And it looks more palatable for Friday morning.
Gender balance.
Yes. Of course, this is the biggest talking point now. Jamhuri Day, 12th of December, is not far away. We can count 4 days till that date. Of course, we're talking about a long holiday, but there's a lot of anxiety heading towards Jamhuri Day because of what the expectation and where we've just come from, given the kind of anxiety that we've been going through with that elongated, prolonged electioneering period. But it appears it's not over yet. Something could happen come Jamhuri Day. But yes, the Attorney General comes out and says that's high treason. Ruth, sorry for that. Ruth, what do you say to that? High treason, and NASA insists they will go on. How can this happen? How do we expect this to pan out?
Well, first, I don't know what the Attorney General meant by high treason. I think there is only treason in the Penal Code, Section 40, which basically talks about the fact that, trying to encompass or devising methods by which one would basically overthrow the government or engaging in activities such as terrorism is treason and punishable by death. And NASA is insisting that they are going to go ahead and swear in the president. Well, the one thing that we should first of all understand is what kind of president are they going to swear in? Is it the president of the Republic of Kenya? Is it the people's president, as they keep saying it? And then it is not also very clear from the NASA leadership exactly what kind of a ceremony they are envisioning, because we know that according to the Constitution, once one is elected as a president and declared so and also sworn in, there's a process as to which this individual should be sworn in, and we had Uhuru Kenyatta being sworn in by the Chief Justice himself, taking that oath of allegiance. So we are yet to understand what kind of, which people are going to be involved in this kind of swearing in. Are we going to have judges of the Supreme Court being involved in this? And it's interesting. Personally, I cannot wait to see exactly what is going to happen. But as regards this high treason that the Attorney General talks about, in my own view, I don't think the plans that Raila Odinga and his people have really qualify as high treason per se, because I mean, how many people? I mean, personally, I think I can just gather a few people and swear myself in as the president.
To protect the Constitution.
So long as and swear to protect the Constitution. So long as I don't, I mean, I can do that, and I don't think that would be treasonable per se. We have seen sections of the country trying to create parallel governments in the past, and really I don't think they were treated as having committed treason. You know, we saw MRC coming up just the other day, and I don't think they were taken as seriously as the AG is trying to portray this situation. And you know, in his statement he said that the planned swearing in is null and void ab initio. So basically, if you already consider it as null and void ab initio, then why are you giving it so much, you know, why are you giving it so much attention? You should just let it be.
Null and void, anyone can swear to protect the Constitution. It's okay, you can protect the Kenyan Constitution. I don't think it's wrong. In fact, that's what you should do as a Kenyan, as a good Kenyan. According to the Constitution of Kenya, only the Chief Justice or the Deputy Chief Justice can swear in a president. So, in the event that either of those two or both of them are not available for such a process, it is null and void.
Not even just the Chief Justice, the process of an election, the process of being declared a winner, all of that is missing. And therefore, this is a joke. Let me tell you, you see, in class 3, you can hold a play today in class 3 North, in whichever primary school you are in, and declare yourself the president of class 3 North. These things happen all the time. The NSK has a chairman, which other, the Agricultural Society has a president. Being a president is no big deal. Let him become the president of NASA if that's what they want to change his title. The fact of the matter is this. This is a situation where the government is probably going to take a joke too seriously. And the danger of taking a joke too seriously is if I ask the joke, knock knock, who's there? Or why did the chicken cross the road? And then the lawyer starts saying, is he talking about us? You understand? Is he profiling us? This is the same case where a joke is being taken too seriously. And what the government should do, if I'm very honest, Raila Odinga, and I'll tell you as a strategist, what he wants is he wants the government to react. That's what he wants. And
it has reacted.
Yes.
By the Attorney General coming out to comment on this.
Exactly.
That's the kind of reaction NASA wants.
And the moment and the second they arrest him,
that's it.
That's it. That's what he wants. So they're playing into his hands. It is a strategy. But if today Jubilee decided, you know what, let's focus on other things. Let's build roads. Let's focus on launching projects. Let's focus on Jamhuri Day. Trust me, he will get sworn in. What will happen? He will not get a motorcade. He will not become commander-in-chief. He will not have the county assemblies are nothing. The people's assemblies are nothing. So basically, Jubilee is the one to give this thing legitimacy or not. Yes.
It appears, as Mark Bichachi says, that probably Jubilee is now playing into the hands of NASA. We've seen in neighboring Uganda something like this happened some time back. Kiza Besigye was sworn in, but it didn't happen. It didn't. There was no major consequence to that.
If one thing about you know, we also belong in a committee of states, and one of the things that Raila is trying to do is trying to attract the attention of various nations. And you've seen the US and the UK having close interest and close attention to what's going on in terms of whatever he's planning, the whole thing. As much as you might look at it as, for me, it's a child play. The swearing in is a child play, and we don't need to give it so much legal or political attention. But on the other hand, we must appreciate two things. That Raila is not, one, just any other politician. Raila is one of the key politicians in this country in terms of following, in terms of anticipation or expectation from the masses. And if, for example, you give room in terms of the political perception that, for example, he is sworn in through whichever means, then whatever you're battling with is a battle of perception, which I think Jubilee should do its best so that perception is, we don't reach a stage where you're battling a battle of perception. One thing is that, you see, the Constitution anticipates two things. That the winner of an election shall have 50 plus 1. So it means the loser has 49%, isn't it? In this election, or in this country, we are so divided in a sense that Raila too has a very big or massive following. So one thing that the whole of this should be about, or the swearing in should be about, Jubilee should try to manage that aspect of perception.
That is political.
That is political.
But by choosing to use the legal route, by choosing to have the Attorney General comment on it instead of the politicians, that says something as well.
I think on the aspect of the Attorney General, more so referring to that to it as an act of high treason, I think that was just a political, a term of art. So that is, you use it to explain some high voltage kind of an offense, for that matter. It's to, I think for me, it's a scaremongering tactic on the part of the government. But on the other hand, it falls within the four corners of the definition of a treason charge, in the sense that Article 40 of the Penal Code prefers or gives out the ingredients of what constitutes treason. And if, for example, you want to swear in a president, then you want to overthrow a government, for that matter. And overthrowing a government is within the definition of treason on the part of Section 40 of the Penal Code. When you look at it from that perspective, then the Attorney General is a legal advisor to the government and to the whole nation, for that matter, to us as a citizenry. Then he has a right, probably, to inform both sides of the political divide of what are the consequences of doing a particular thing. But on the other hand, if you look, what are these the steps to which one should follow before becoming a president? For example, one of the issues that Raila made, one of the groups that Raila made, was the failure to participate in the 26th election, October elections. For that matter, had he participated in that election, and for example had a slight difference, maybe one had 9 million votes and then he had let's say 8 million votes, then he will be saying, for example, that IBC, let us open the servers. But right now, his pleas or his cries do not really make sense, in the sense that, on the other hand, he has a fallback plan, but he's still insisting on an election that he still lost on the end.
This word treason. It was used quite a lot back in the 80s, when many people were taken to court and some of them put into detention because of treason. But after that, it's been quite a long time. We've not heard of anyone being charged for treason. What exactly is treason as a lawyer? And when probably is the last instance you can remember of someone in Kenya being charged for treason?
Well, the last time one was charged for treason in Kenya was in 1983. This was right after the attempted coup by Ochunka and part of the military and very many other people who aided the process. And I think, when we go back to what happened in 1982, that's where we would want to start having a different perspective, or rather would want to start interrogating exactly what treason is. Because when you say, when one envisions and encompasses the disposition of a president, what exactly do we mean by the word disposition of a president? When we say disposition, I think the dictionary makes it very clear that disposition is basically an attempt to overthrow the government. It is an attempt to basically turn over the government and to, in a way, sort of kick out the president from his seat. When we look at how the 1982 coup was planned, there was so much that went into planning that coup. And I think that's where we need to start asking ourselves, when NASA has always made it clear that they are going to swear in the president, yet the treasonable act that took place in 1982 was a secretly planned mission. It was one of those missions that was secretly planned, properly planned within the military. There was the military involved. In fact, part of their plans were to burn down State House. They were planning to take over control of the Jomo Kenyatta International, the control towers of JKIA. They were planning to lock down various airports. They were even planning to take over the military itself. So now when you start looking at the seriousness with which, the depth with which the planning of the 1982 coup took, and right now what Raila is basically saying, look, you know what, come turn out in large numbers at where are they planning to, Jacaranda grounds or whichever grounds they're going to choose to take the swearing in of Raila Odinga. You begin to ask yourself, is it really treasonable per se? Are they really planning to overthrow the military? Are they planning to block out certain airports? Are they planning to burn down State House like these other people were planning? So I think...
But Jubilee, if at all they get into that kind of mentality where they start arresting and detaining NASA supporters or leaders for that matter,
will they arrest?
That will take us back to those days, probably, and that probably is what NASA wants.
And you know, the most dangerous thing we keep forgetting, that Raila Odinga, number one, was trained in the Eastern Bloc, okay? Number two, he was detained for many years in this country. And there's nothing more dangerous than someone who has nothing to lose. Raila is past 50 years old, he's past 60 years old, he's lived his life. What he's looking for, by the way, is a matter as exist. All right, and if we consider that, then you really roll back your plans. But in the event, in fact, let me say, in the likely event, because this is my prediction, that Jubilee will arrest people on that day. It is my prediction that they will try to either get Raila under house arrest or have some sort of court injunction against him. That is definitely going to happen. Now, how they'll manage two situations is going to be very interesting. Number one, the political fallout. Because the amount of noise that will come not only from NASA elected leaders, but from the core supporters, which I think is about 20% of Kenya. No, core, hardcore supporters, not you softcore people, activists. The core supporters are about 20%. And you know, 20% is a huge number. What that core support base will turn out to do is the other thing that the Jubilee have to manage. So there's a political consequence of arresting a man such as Raila, and then there's the security consequence, and the security consequence is a bit more dicey than we expect, because it is very hard to control an emotional people. It's very hard, because again they get to that point where they feel like, you know what, we've got nothing to lose. And what you need to make sure never get to is where a mob feels like, you know what, I'm going to give my life for this cause. That's where we need to stop the country from getting to. Outside of that, we are safe. But if we play in that league, then we're in trouble.
But of what consequence will this swearing in ceremony be of? Whether or not they're allowed to go ahead and swear in Raila Odinga. Okay, what happens after that? He's sworn in.
One thing I will probably pick it from where Ruth had left her. You know, when Section 40 of the Penal Code talks about the posting, it talks about it goes further and says using unlawful means. And how do you define unlawful in this sense? Unlawful in this sense is that the acts preceding the declaration of the president by, for example, by Raila. If IBC has not declared Raila as the president, for example, in that matter, then there's no other body which has legal mandate to declare him as the president. That is one. Then Assumption of Office Act gives like the infrastructure into which one should use before he is declared as a president. We need to have an Assumption of Office committee to come in place in terms of also creating enough planning for the government. Has that happened? No. Therefore, Article 40, if you fail to adhere to any section before you are declared as a president, not within the Article 40, then that is unlawful. Therefore, anything that Raila will do or shall be done in terms of declaration of his presidency or otherwise, therefore it falls within the unlawful deposition of the division of the treason. That is one. Secondly, in terms whether Raila is declared as a president or not, at this moment in time, it does not really matter, because there is no way the Chief Justice will maybe swear him in. There is no way, as anticipated under Article 138 and 139 of the Constitution, in terms of subclause 8 and 9, where IBC chair declares the president-elect. That has not happened. Therefore, any process that is ongoing is a child's play. But as much as we want to look at it as a child's play, we are also at a situation where we are also looking at perception and legitimacy on the part of the president. If, for example, a section to the international media, a section of this country comes out loudly, and what Raila is trying to do with these shenanigans is to create an avenue for negotiation of power. When there is an outcry by a section of this country that probably they feel left out in terms of what is going on or what's not going on, then that is the time that the international community will come in and force a sort of negotiation. And you have seen already the US and the US and the UK. More so during the swearing in of President Uhuru Kenyatta, the Minister of African Affairs from UK, Rory Stewart, was here. And one of the issues that he really insisted on was the aspect of dialogue. You've seen also the coming in of the US, more so the assistant minister in charge of African Affairs, I think, has also come in, and he's insisting on the issue. One, he's asking Raila not to be sworn in. He's asking that aspect of Raila swearing himself to stop. On the other hand, he's insisting on dialogue. And on the other hand, he's also forcing something called the coercive diplomacy, in the sense that he's telling Raila, on the other hand, if you continue using this avenue, then we are going to put sanctions on you. And on the other hand, he's telling the government, can you give dialogue a chance? So in that aspect, you see, Raila has already attracted the attention of the international media or international community. For that matter, to solve this kind of quagmire, you need two approaches. One, first of all, bring him on the negotiation table and ask him, for example, one of the issues, power is not about, when you see these people fighting over power, it's not about the interest of their people, it's about their personal interest. And one of the best examples is Zimbabwe. When they're negotiating with President Mugabe to leave power, they asked him what is it that he wants as a person. Forget about telling us we have Africanized about land and all that. Is the aspect of probably he has spent so much in terms of the election, isn't it? But we still come up with a way that we appreciate that he has done so much for this country, and also recognize him as a national maybe a statesman for that matter.
First, let's define this crisis. This is not a crisis. This is an ego that has refused to stop. Let's just be honest. You see, at some point, you go to the club, and then you end up in a vocal fight, okay? You're like this, you're like that, okay? Then your ego rises up a bit and you punch. Then the guy punches you back real hard. And you feel the pain and you look at the people around you, decide, you know what, I'm going to punch back real hard. This is a question of egos.
So it's about digging in.
Yes.
Ahead of the dialogue, anticipated
exactly.
Dialogue. But don't you think, therefore, that it would be prudent upon the Jubilee administration, because even the president had indicated that after being sworn in, his main job now will be to unite the country. Now probably it would be nice, or it would be easier on the country that even before this act, whether null and void, whether illegal, whether inconsequential, that before it happens, that probably preempted, that before Jamhuri Day, this period in between is when the dialogue should happen.
Well, I think it's very interesting that we have timelines for when dialogue should happen in this country. That we have, dialogue, the process of dialogue seems to be controlled by certain groups of people, and they choose to have dialogue when they want to have dialogue, and when they feel that it's not in their interest to have dialogue, they say no. Because I remember very well that right before the October 26 elections, we had Raila asking the president to come, Uhuru Kenyatta, before he became president, to come and sit down with him and have a conversation about electoral reforms for the purpose of the October 26th election, or even with the intention of pushing postponing the election so that they could have an election all assured that the election was going to be free, fair and credible. So now when the president says that I'm waiting to be sworn in as president, then I can begin the process of having a dialogue of uniting Kenyans, then he makes dialogue look like an event. He makes dialogue look like a deliverable, he makes it look like when it is not serving the interest of him being president, of him being elected president, then there is no need to have dialogue. Then now one begins to question whether these calls for dialogue really are genuine, And then right before even these elections happened, they all had their headlines. Raila was saying, the only kind of dialogue I'm going to have, and he still insists that the only kind of dialogue I'm going to have is one that results into us coming up with different, or rather us coming up with different ways of running this election, with reforms of running an election. Therefore, he still insists that even if we are going to dialogue right now, we are going to dialogue about how we shall have reforms so that we can go back to another election. And remember, there is a whole section of the country that actually did not vote, did not have even the right to participate in that election in the first place. And we can begin to argue as to why they were not allowed, they were not given the right to vote, and then we can also start arguing and asking ourselves that for these people, who then becomes their president? And such questions are the ones that now bring us to start asking ourselves whether it is indeed right when NASA says we want to swear in the People's President.
Okay.
Remember, they have the People's Assembly, and the People's Assembly needs to have a president.
And we'll be talking about the People's Assembly in a short while after the break. Another headline still tied to that story. Can I read just a moment? County bosses form team to spearhead talks. That's on page 8 of the Standard. Governors have set up a 10-member committee to ease the political tensions in the country. The members are Josephat Nanok, Turkana. These are governors: Colonel Rasanga Siaya, Kivutha Kibwana Makueni, Wycliffe Oparanya Kakamega, Joyce Laboso Bomet, Jackson Mandago Uasin Gishu, Charity Ngilu Kitui, Francis Kimeme Nyandarua, Kiraitu Murungi of Meru, and Salim Vuri of Kwale. Under the aegis of the Council of Governors, the team of 10 will spearhead the agenda dubbed National Reconciliation Dialogue and Healing. Now, whether or not this will be of any consequence, we are yet to see. We'll just have to wait and see. But when we come back after the break, we'll be discussing issues to do with the People's Assembly. Machakos and Mombasa became the latest counties to pass that motion. In Nairobi, the motion was not successful. But what happens next? The AG also said something about the People's Assemblies. That when Power Breakfast returns.